How's it going, everybody? Jared Lutz here, back with some Diablo 4 news. Just yesterday, Blizzard continued their Inside the Game series with a brand new video titled Into the Endgame that dives a little deeper into Diablo 4's endgame systems. We get to hear from Associate Game Director Joseph Piapura, Game Director Joe Shelley, along with the lead game producer Kaylee Calder and game producer Ash Sweetring, as they talk about what's on offer for Diablo 4's endgame at launch. We get small glimpses at Capstone and Nightmare Dungeons, Paragon Boards and exactly what they look like, overworld experiences, and the PvP Fields of Hatred. I'll link the original video down in the description for you to check out, but let's jump right into what we get to see. Early on into the video, Joe Shelley emphasizes that one focus of D4's endgame systems was to have something for everyone. No matter your playstyle, there's some form of endgame content that you'll enjoy. Whether you're someone who mainly likes exploring the open world, or grinding difficult dungeons, or participating in PvP, one of their main goals is that there's always something for everyone to do after the main campaign is complete. The first thing that's talked about is Capstone Dungeons. You'll gain access to this dungeon once you finish the campaign, and it's meant to test your character and your build to make sure you're ready for the next world tier. World tiers are something we got to see a bit of in the beta. These are essentially the game's difficulties. In the beta, we had access to the Adventurer and Veteran world tiers, or World Tier 1 and 2, but we could view World Tiers 3 and 4, those being Nightmare and Torment. Every time you move up a world tier, things get more difficult, but you also get more rewards. For example, Nightmare difficulty has more formidable foes, monsters overcome 20% resistance, but they also give 100% increased experience and 15% more gold. You can also get sacred and unique items to drop, as well as Nightmare sigils, which are essentially the keys you need to gain access to Nightmare dungeons. Helltides can also appear in Nightmare difficulty, and champion monsters with damage-resistant auras can also appear. This info is from the beta, so note that things are subject to change, but there's always a reason to move up to a higher world tier, but the game will get much harder. You'll also unlock the next world tiers as you play and complete activities in the lower tiers. Next up is Paragon Boards. Way back in 2021, we got our first glimpse at how these worked and what they looked like. Now we're finally able to see them in-game. Paragon Boards are a way to continue to progress and build your character separate from the skill tree, and you unlock Paragon after you reach level 50. If it still works the same as how it was explained back in 2021, each class has their own intro board, a set of fixed tiles contained in a square board. As you get Paragon points, you're able to make selections on the board that radiate out from the center starting point, with each tile selection you make needing to be connected to tiles you've already unlocked. Now, there's a lot going on here that the devs really don't dive into in this video, but from our previous info and from pausing here and there, we can point out different things. First off, there's tons of different kinds of tiles or nodes. You've got the normal nodes, which are gray in color and are the most common across each board. These give you small stat bumps to either strength, intelligence, willpower, or dexterity. Here you can see that all these stat bumps are +5. You can also see the gold cost to refund a node. In this gameplay, no matter the type of node, the refund cost remains the same. You've also got magic nodes, which are blue in color and are found in clusters throughout the boards. These give more potent and diverse sets of benefits, like the one we see here that provides +50 to armor. We also barely see another magic node that's +7 to strength, which technically is a more potent version of a normal node. You also have rare nodes that are yellow and offer significant boosts in power. They represent goals for you to chase on each board once you've started to really narrow down your build. It looks like in-game they also have a yellow border around them, so they stand out more from the other nodes. If the 2021 article info is still correct, these rare nodes have additional powers that can unlock once you've raised an attribute to a sufficient level, requiring some choices to be made when plotting your path throughout the boards. Then we have legendary nodes, of which there are only one per board after the first, so your starting board won't have a legendary node, but every board after that will. Legendary nodes impart a new legendary power onto your character. The one we see here is Cheap Shot, where you deal 5% increased damage for each nearby enemy that is crowd controlled up to 25%. There are also Gate nodes, which are found on each side of every board. Once you reach them, you get to choose another board to attach to that point, allowing you to keep allocating Paragon points now on a whole new board full of new magic, rare, and one legendary node. You're also able to rotate said board before you attach it if you see a better path you'd rather take on one side versus another. Lastly, we have glyphs. From the 2021 article, Glyphs are items found throughout Sanctuary that, when embedded into a Paragon board, confer various benefits based upon the number of active tiles within their radius. Glyphs can also be leveled up by delving into some particularly dangerous dungeons. Leveling up a glyph extends the radius of their effect, allowing each one to draw power from or impart power to even more active tiles. These glyphs on screen now were the examples that were given back in 2021. These glyphs can only be embedded into sockets found on Paragon boards, which, if I have to assume, are these thick red outlined nodes, as the red outline matches the outlines around some of the glyphs. I could be wrong or partially correct, but it's hard to know since they weren't directly mentioned in this video. These red borders aren't to be confused with these thin red outlined nodes, as they are just the nodes you're able to currently unlock based on the nodes you've already acquired. Now, I know that was a lot of info, but that's it on Paragon boards for now. Moving on. Next, they talk about the Codex of Power and the Aspects system, which we got to see in full swing during the beta. Essentially, some dungeons upon completion will drop an aspect. These are legendary powers that will unlock in your Codex of Power, allowing you to add them to rare items, giving it that new power and changing it into a legendary. Or you can infuse it into a legendary item to replace that legendary's power with one from your Codex. I do want to note that here in this video, the devs state that when you complete a dungeon, you have a chance to obtain an aspect. Not sure if this is still the case, but in the beta, it was never a chance, you just completed the dungeon and always got the aspect, unless I was just super lucky. Next up is Nightmare Dungeons. These are alternate, more difficult versions of the 120 plus regular dungeons you'll find throughout D4's world. You'll be able to access these dungeons when you come across an item called a sigil, which will let you unlock a certain Nightmare dungeon. Not only do these dungeons have more objectives, but they also have affixes that will drastically change the experience and difficulty. One affix that was pointed out was the Hellgate affix, which will occasionally open up hell portals throughout the dungeon that will spit out monsters that aren't native to the region you're in, forcing you to deal with them on top of everything else. Then we have Endgame within exploration of the overworld. As far as we currently know, these only consist of Helltides and Whispers of the Dead. Helltide is when the forces of hell are out in full swing, full power, laying waste to certain parts of Sanctuary. The sky will turn red, meteors will apparently fall from the sky, and the very ground will be morphed by the demonic presence while a Helltide is happening. While you're in this region-wide event, you'll find very powerful monsters that can drop cinders, a currency used to open Helltide chests that are scattered throughout the area. These chests boast bountiful boons exclusive to a singular item slot, but if you hoard your cinders and die, they'll drop and you'll have to reclaim them. Whispers of the Dead sound like some form of bounties tied to the Tree of Whispers, which is this tree that's got like a bunch of severed heads hanging from it. It's pretty gruesome. You'll be able to complete bounties from this tree, do its deeds, gather resources for it, and bring them back to the tree for rewards. Here it shows you're able to choose one of 3 rewards, a collection of one-handed weapons, boots, or gauntlets. This seems to be a way to target certain loot if you're looking for a specific item or specific upgrade. Lastly, we have the Fields of Hatred, areas throughout Sanctuary that Lilith's presence has poisoned, spreading hate into our players' minds. This gives us the ability to engage in player versus player. Monsters in these zones can drop shards, but in order to take these shards back to town, you have to purify them in a process that will alert other players of your location. If you manage to defend yourself and successfully purify your shards, you can take them back to town to trade for cosmetic items and rewards. Now, the devs stated that this is only the endgame systems planned with launch, and as the game progresses season over season, we can most likely expect more non-endgame and endgame systems to be added. Over time, it's only going to get better. Some other random things that I also noticed in the video: it looks like we get a teaser of a new world boss that at least I haven't seen yet, this new dope skeleton boss guy, and this looks like Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish, making her return from Diablo 2 it seems. Nice to see her back. And that's it, that's my breakdown of the new Into the Endgame video. Once again, I'll leave that linked in the description for you to check out. Let me know what endgame activity you're excited for the most. Personally, I'm a big fan of bounties, as they're just a nice checklist of things to do that's always satisfying to me, but I'm also interested in PvP because I can't turn down cosmetics. I'm very curious as to how Blizzard thinks they're going to be able to balance PvP, but we'll see. I'll be covering all Diablo 4 news up to release and after, as well as doing deep dives into all the gameplay systems that we know about in order to help players that are new to Diablo or new to the genre. So subscribe if that's something you're into. Appreciate you watching. I don't have an outro, so this is it. First video back in a year. Crazy. Anyway, see ya.